Welcome to Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. Innovative Strategy is a show designed to help people with their business and personal financial literacy, but not in the way that you have known. This is not your grandpa's financial literacy, as Bill uses his 30-plus years in the financial industry to stretch your financial box from, let's say about a 30,000-foot view of things. Bill and his guests have helped hundreds of clients achieve and surpass their financial goals. If you have any questions, please email Bill at Bill@BillHasse, that's Bill@BillHasse.com, or reach out to him right here at 216thenet@gmail.com. Welcome in to Innovative Strategies. And as a producer, it always helps if you enter the right studio to start the show. That is always a bonus.
You know, live shows are always fun, aren't they?
Hey, well, you know what? You didn't think this was my first show. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's been one of those weeks. Bill, how's your week?
I'm doing a little better than that.
There you go. Good.
Apparently, I was in the wrong studio as well for a little bit with you. But we're here. We got it. We'll call it technical difficulties. How's that?
There we go. We're good to go now.
So we're good. I know everybody's got kind of their eyes looking forward at Thanksgiving. We got the holidays coming up, and that's a whole different time of world and different mindset.
Yeah.
But I love today's show with Charlie Smith and John Jordan, because I get to talk about my two favorite things. I get to talk about ways in which I can help business owners grow and understand their business better, and it includes financial literacy.
There you go. What better?
These are two very sharp gentlemen from Expense Reductions, and let's introduce them. Charlie, John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
It's awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
So tell us, what do you guys get into when I tell people I'm going to help you understand and learn another aspect of your business and provide you with financial literacy? I'm putting myself out there over the edge. So what is it you guys bring to the table for these business owners?
You know what? It's interesting. As one of the largest, and it sounds so unsexy, Bill. Let's just call it like it is. Our name is Expense Reduction Analysts, right? But we find that very sexy. But we're the largest contingency firm in the world in cost reduction, right? Over 1,000 consultants in 50 different countries. And you probably never heard of us.
Right.
That is the state of financial literacy probably in North America at this time when it comes to businesses and what they really could be doing on the pricing that they're paying for things. And really, it's not a question about generating cash. Right. It's a question about what can they use that cash for? I mean, think about it, Bill, all the guests and things that you've done over the years, and they're looking for the ability to act on the things that they're learning, right? Just from being part of your podcast, right?
Yeah.
And the challenge is like, only if I had these dollars or if I had these resources, right? And that's what we're about, right? That is like, hey, let's help you find some of that hidden money, not for money's sake. We all like that, but really to grow your business in areas that you simply don't have the resources to do. And so we come in to companies and we find that through their unsexy expenses, those things that they don't have a procurement department to go after, or they have the procurement department, but they're working on their direct spend. So we work on a lot of the indirect spends, but the principles we could talk about today will help them on their direct spends or not direct spends. And that's kind of what we do. We go in, we're like, we'll overuse the term trusted advisors, but that's what we do. We're typically with clients for a very long time and we provide a lot of value. John, I don't know if you wanted to add to that at all.
I think that was a great description, Charlie. So I would say, I guess the only thing I would add for our work and building on the trusted advisor piece is it's a completely flexible model. So we're there to help.
Well, so a question for you. I mean, I talk about this, business owners needing to understand their books better so they can make better decisions, but it's pretty common that they don't have a clue, right? what types of businesses are you guys working with? Because I'm guessing maybe a little bit bigger businesses.
Go ahead, John.
I would say that they're typically companies that have top line revenue of about 10 million bill and up. I think we're particularly well suited to the middle market, which I would probably categorize as about 20 million to maybe 500 million to $1 billion, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think we're well suited, and other companies operating in our space, because they're lacking specialization as far as people on staff, because it just is not economic, right? And then everything that goes with specialization beyond the specialists and the tools, etc.
Well, it kind of blows my mind that you can be running $100 million business and still not understand your books. Still not understand the finances, where they are, what they can do for you, how to make money work for you.
Right. It's interesting, Bill, because, think about if you're the CFO, right? And she's looking at these books, and she certainly understands the books, right? And she has teams do it, but they don't understand. And really where you have to say, well, we probably don't want them to have to understand that, because that means they're spending, these CFOs will be spending too much time on areas that aren't going to really impact their business as much as the direct spend is. And so what I mean is, like, look, I would expect that CFO and the procurement team to be able to understand, if they're, let's say they're making chairs, right? Wooden chairs. I would expect her and her team to really know their business when it comes to wood, the price of wood, paint, glue, nails. But much beyond that, if she's an expert on uniforms that the manufacturing people are wearing, and the safety equipment that they're using, and the merchant card fees that they're using, and all the copiers and all those other things, then she's probably gone too far afield, not focusing on the things that she needs to.
And that's pretty common, right? It's I've met some big shot CFOs in major corporations, and again, I'm flabbergasted at how little they know about how money works. I've sat down and met with them, and back when I was a full-time financial advisor, and would sit down and go over investment strategies and insurance policies and things, and how to be your own bank or maybe something like that. And they would just stare like deer staring into headlights.
Bill, it's funny. So if you and I were just talking together, we didn't have a national audience here. So, it's just us two. I'm and three with John, and we're very, very confidential. There's different folks, as you know this, right? In that profession, right? It should be a financial position, but those that really are focused on the accounting portion of it, they're trying to protect the nut. Mm-hmm. Right. And they brought up that way. I'd say 2 out of 10 of these CFOs are actually typical finance people and strategists, as the type of person you're trying to describe. Right. Yeah. And frankly, those 2 out of 10 are those that are going to become the next CEO. Right. Because they understand beyond protecting the nut. They actually see the big picture and where other resources can be utilized in their business.
We run into folks that just don't understand. They don't like numbers. All right. Right. I mean, I can't be a doctor. I don't get that world. I can't figure out that language, engineering and stuff. I'm a finance person myself, and I know numbers. And I mean, numbers get me excited. They tell me things, but that's not everybody's cup of tea. Yet we find ourselves put in these positions where that's a very important factor. And you're saying, 2 out of 10 get it. So 8 out of 10, those are your target markets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would almost say, John, do you agree? It's like our target market are actually really the 2 out of 10 because they get it, right? And they get our model. Like, think about it. Our model is we're going to come in and get paid to the penny the actual value we bring to a company. So we don't bring them any value. We don't get anything. Right. But the more we're able to get for them, they benefit and we benefit as well. And so, John, what are some of your experiences that you've had as you talk to these companies? I know you're out, you've worked with private equity all the way down to the smaller businesses. What kind of what kind of CFOs and owners are really attracted to the type of services that we provide when it comes to cost reduction?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit there, Charlie. Thank you. I would say, Bill, that most people look at us and building on Charlie's point, we're creating P&L dollars, if you will, and those are the people that really want to work with us. And we're not for everybody. We get that. And there's large consulting firms, and I don't think it gives them proper credit for the work they do, but I'll hear it brought up from the C-suite that we've gotten a lot of PowerPoint dollars delivered, but we want P&L dollars, and that's what we're all about. So and really at the end of the day, it's about just optimizing all the monies they're spending with outside suppliers, right? And doing all that without ever cutting quality. It's absolutely imperative, because if you reduce quality with all these support areas, then you're likely going to impact the purpose of the company and why they're there. So it's
I like that. Yeah, that's important. I mean, most companies if they want to cut costs, they could just get rid of employees, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what we don't want to mess with at all. In fact, we're trying to generate that P&L dollar to make sure that their money is used towards their precious resource, which is human related, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's their most valuable resource. And so we don't come in and touch that, other than to drive more resources available to them from the financial side.
Let's go back a little bit, because you said it right at the beginning of the show here, and I really liked it. You talked about practice. So, when you go out and you're teaching someone and helping them understand things within their business, if they don't get to practice it right away, it goes away, right? I mean, we just forget about it, because that's human nature. It's happened to me too often. But so tell us, how is that part of what you bring to the table? Is you're not just showing them, here, this is what you can do, but you're showing them how to do it.
That's right. Well, there's two different things there, right? We focus on pricing, process, and policy. Okay. So what we'll typically do, Bill, is we're really about business intelligence nowadays, right? I mean, we've been at this for almost 30 years, but we've also grown in with the type of an analysis that these companies need to have. So, for instance, what we'll do is we'll go in and take a look at a company's transactional accounts payable, right? Every bill they paid, they just download that from QuickBooks or whatever it is. Then we'll come back to them. We'll say, look, guys, here are some things where there's some opportunities for you. We're benchmarking and say, hey, look, we've done literally thousands of different projects with all these suppliers and things. Here's some areas that you guys could work on, and you have the team to do it. And we're letting you know that these should be your top 10, because there's still there's some value there, an opportunity there. But this is one of your main wheelhouses. We know that there's opportunity there. If you need some help with that, great. But make sure your team is focusing on those. So think how valuable that to is right off the bat. Look, we haven't even signed as a client. We're like, here's some things that you guys should be working on right now. The other thing we do is almost more valuable, in that we say, look, here are some things that's not going to move the needle. Your contracts are in place, or you're already getting good pricing. Don't put any more resources there. Go focus on this area up here that your team can work on. They have the expertise. And so we're just saying, because a lot of times they may throw a lot of effort in things that's just not going to move the needle at all, right? But they don't know that because they're flying blind. And then we say, look, here's this area over here, right? This unsexy side, that we want to partner up with you on this pricing, process, and policy, system, work with them, and to provide that to them. So what where the value I think we most add, Bill, is that, we could do any and all for them, but what really helps them on these sexy, unsexy things is that it's minimal time requirement for them, and we're able to come back to them and do that work and provide them options that they get to choose that we partner on, but it's not draining their resources, right? And we do that well over 40 different categories. That's a lot of work.
Well, helping them become more efficient. That's what I'm saying. And when you talk about unsexy, that's the things that we just don't want to do. And it might be because we don't know we need to do this or to learn this, which I would imagine you run into is fairly common. I've had business owners that I've talked to that they send trucks out for service calls and sales calls and stuff. And I say, what do you charge to send it out? Oh, $70. Okay. What does it cost you to send them out? And they just look at me. They have no idea what some of the things that they're doing is costing them. I imagine you run into that. I mean, again, we're talking about being efficient.
You know what they run into, Bill, is even a lot of times people can talk about those, how much it cost me to ship from here to there, but what they are not seeing, because they don't have that visibility, right? They're the people that are actually doing the work, down at the ground level get it, but they don't see the surcharges, the penalties they're paying, things for just like, I've got this address wrong and FedEx was able to correct it, but it cost me $7 to have that done. And they just keep cranking it up, right? So that's where you just get you can get into pricing negotiation with a FedEx or UPS, but more importantly is, hey, what's the system, right, that draws attention to these out of bounds charges, right? They're just getting killed. Almost everybody probably on this podcast is just getting killed from these hidden things. But Bill, what I don't want to is everybody panicking and start looking at all their invoices, because some of those things are not the best use of their time, right? And that's where we come in. We look at that stuff that say, look, it moves the needle, but for you to dive into that invoice, these surcharges and things like that, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring that up. Yeah, you do have to use your time efficiently, and that's part of the problem of running a business is you get pulled in so many different directions, right? And what's valuable, what isn't valuable, and you don't oftentimes even know that. So how do I know if I've got an issue or a problem where I should come after guys like you to come in and help me out? That's a tough one, right? If I don't know I have problems, it's not on my plate, it hasn't come to my attention, I don't go down and meet the ground workers and learn from them, which is another thing that you should be doing. But how does someone come to the conclusion that I need help?
Hey, John, you want to take that one?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bill, because I think that most of the companies we work with, believe it or not, are high performing companies. They're doing an awesome job. And we're typically transacting initially anyway with the leader or maybe the CFO. And so they brought in a lot of the leaders. I know they're great, the people that work for the organization. And what's really not understood is that they're generalists in the supply chain area. Now, there may be certain areas that they have expert buyers or people with a lot of subject matter in a certain area. We've talked about freight, but it's not the same as being in the market all the time, for one. So we're really the marketplace, because we're dealing with all these different companies, not absolutely all, but most all companies, given that we're doing thousands of projects at any given time. And we're working with many of these suppliers. So it's not a failing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's really just not an understanding that you can bring specialization to bear to then optimize your supply chain and bring it up to really a world-class level, which is where I think more and more companies have to do, right? Because we're in a competitive world. And the other thing I'd mention is that so often we find that there's not a lot of training with folks on how to negotiate in the supply chain. And I think that's such an important piece of it, beyond just having the knowledge.
Well, we could go off all day if you wanted to on the lack of training of leadership skills and financial skills and negotiation skills and whatnot. I like that you bring up the point that it's not a failure. If you're a CEO or the head of a company, you're the top. You're supposed to already have all the answers, and you don't, and and you have nowhere to go to, right? Yeah, and who do you go to? You're the top of the line. You can go to your board and say, "Hey, I would really appreciate some leadership help, negotiation help, or whatnot," and the board will go look at you and say, "Sorry, that's not on the docket."
Isn't that funny, Bill? How many times, I know John, Bill, you've done the same, right? You climb the ladder and you go to the corporate office and you're sitting around the C-suite and you're like going, man, I used to think everybody here was smart, and it's just like, we don't have all these answers, right? And the smart ones, and you kind of just touched on it, right? And it's probably a thing you've brought up before in your podcast is, man, you need to get out and walk around and talk to people, right? Because that's where you find these gyms and where to point your efforts and what's going on, right? Because they'll just, once they know you're serious about it, they'll just say, hey, we've got a problem here. I remember I tell this story called $1 Million Donuts. And I remember I was working with a client. We were doing several projects for them. And I get a call from the CEO that says, hey, I need you in my office right away. And I'm like, you never want to hear that as a consultant, right? You're just like, okay, this isn't going to go well, right?
It's getting called to the principal's office, right?
And I got brought, and so I get brought in there, and I'm sitting there with, the CFO, the CEO, and the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, who purchased Siemens over. And we were doing all these different categories. And the CEO goes, Charlie, I want to know why, you guys are working on these different categories for me, but I've got like a $5 million spend between UPS, FedEx, DHL, and you guys aren't even touching that. What's going on? And I realized like, oh, this is a setup. Okay. So I said, well, we identified that as an opportunity for you guys, but it's something that you wanted to postpone to this time. And he goes, why is that? And he's like looking at me, then looks at the CFO. The CFO says, well, Jim, why aren't we doing that? Right. The CEO is going, oh, well, hey, look, I'm sure there's some things there, but Danny down in shipping, he's over the warehouse. He just said that, if anybody messes with his relationships, then he's walking. And we liked it, and we like him. And the CEO goes, the CEO goes, we really like Danny. You're right, and we will absolutely provide him with a great letter of recommendation as we help him out the door if that's his attitude. And I was like, whoa! So we got our chance to go and spend some time with Danny, and really go through the processes. Hey, what are some of the most important things that you're looking for? Because we go qualitative first, right? What do you need? Well, let's make sure, and we always work with the incumbents, the guys that are already there. And he's like, what the best thing I like about my representative, and I won't tell you whether the representative is wearing brown or purple, it doesn't matter. He says, this guy every Friday brings in donuts for all 28 people here every week without fail. And we love this guy. He's the best. They're like, okay, great. So we will make sure that's part of our process as we evaluate them. Because, hey, if it's important to them, it's important to them. We will factor in donuts. And as we went through the process, this company had grown, right? But they're on the same contracts year over year that Danny down in the shipping department was signing. That was costing them over $1 million a year. Wow. Because they've gone out of, they've grown out of it. And just by, looking at this again on an annual basis, those donuts, I guarantee you, did not taste like $1 million. In fact, it tasted a lot worse, right?
The greatest donuts ever made for $1 million. We do that in our personal lives as well, right? We don't review or bills. It is said that you should review your insurance, your car insurance, homeowners insurance every 2 to 3 years, and so on and so on. And same thing in business. You got to, although business, I would prefer you annually.
Speaking of business,
Yes.
let's just point people to the direction of where John and Charlie are, where they can find them,
check
how
the
they can
website
help out their business. Go to us.expensereduction.com. Their website is right up there. So as you're kind of cruising around, you can see that and jump in. There's probably some contact. There's some questions to answer there too.
You contact us, find a consultant.
If you're like me, an easy to get through website, which is appreciated.
Yeah.
So.
And I always like how they catch us in those poses, like we're pointing a pin at something, and we look really serious, and we're we're a little more personal than that.
That's
that banker look, the finance guy look. You got to be serious. I mean, who wants to talk to a finance guy who's great at telling jokes? Nobody.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to talk to a finance guy anyway, to begin with. But,
now let's talk about that for a second. Where you guys were at there, and Charlie, the donut guy, right? Or Bruce or Billy or whatever his name was, right? You guys have to see that just a ton, and that could be somebody's, son-in-law at that point. These are stories, John, you and Charlie have seen all the time. And that's a hard talk and hard, if you're going to, well, you know what, but I don't want to ruin it, right? Even though I've got you here for that. Other than just the dollars and cents to it, I mean, what are you guys' approach to that? Or do you just kind of lay your cards out on the table and say, here's the hand you're dealt?
You are talking really about the psychology of consulting, in particular.
Yeah.
Our network, right? Because here is what we're doing the whole time, right? Think about this. We're coming in and we're telling a CEO, a CFO, or even a chief operating officer, right? We're not trying to call their baby ugly. We're partners, right? So during the entire process, we are demonstrating to them not only, and John hit this point perfectly, is like, not only is there opportunity, but guess what? They shouldn't be expected to understand this. Look, we're the guys that are doing these things. We've got experts in the weirdest stuff ever. Yeah. And here you are actually being proactive by taking a look at these items, right? And so all the way through, even to the suppliers. Gosh, you know what? We've got to do this with the suppliers. Think about it if you're an incumbent. Okay, so let's go back to that $1 million donuts example.
Yep.
And I guarantee you that rep knew exactly the profitability of that client, right?
Oh, sure.
Now, when we're going out and negotiating with a supplier, remember, we deal with these suppliers, we deal with national salespeople all the time, right? We don't get any kickbacks or anything like that from them. So it's always a customized solution, and we're supplier agnostic.
Yeah.
But it is in the best interest of the client because they have been serviced so well. I can't get that incumbent typically to move too far off their pricing. Otherwise, they'd be admitting that, yeah, we've been hosing you guys for years. So what you do is, and this is part of it's going to build the things that they can do too, right? It's like, look, you've got to tell the story. You've got to tell the story to the vendor, the supplier. You've got to give them the story that they can tell back to you, which means is, you know what, vendor, you guys have been awesome for us, but you know what we've been lacking? We haven't really shared with you our plans and what we're doing and what your business means to us. That conversation with them, you take them to lunch and say, hey, let's have this conversation with you. Now they're like, hey, thank you for letting me know about that. We didn't even realize that, had that opportunity there. Let me go back and do some work for you. There may be some programs that could really significantly impact you. You've just given that supplier who's been your great supplier and incumbent in delivering the opportunity to now deliver for you, where before they're on the defensive, right? And so it just makes it a win-win situation and really allows you to see some major improvements.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
I love that. It is all in the approach and the treating of the folks, but it's like poor Danny, probably doesn't even see that truck coming, but
we brought the donuts, Bill. We brought the donuts. Yes.
you brought the donuts, and Danny's out because he's threatening with his relationships. This is something that happens a lot in sales too. I've got all the relationships, and I don't care what you think. You pay me more, or I'm out of here. Or Keyman Insurance, folks, just write that down. Keyman Insurance for stuff like that. But you probably run into that in many different aspects of a business. I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
When you're looking at all kinds of costs, you're looking at people who have control, and people love to control their own little world, right?
That's exactly right. And that's why we spend so much time with them and give them credit. That's why we partner with people, right?
Yeah.
We don't, and we try to make those middle managers, purchasers, people like that look good. Our job, we will tell them, right, John? We'll say, hey, we're going to make you look really good here, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to help you out. And wherever we can give the credit to them, because we're only as good as their ability to define really their true needs. And that's an interesting exercise to go through with them. And by getting that feedback from them, we're really able to get some good work on making sure we meet their needs in a really powerful way.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really interesting. I'm sorry,
I would
John.
I would add one thing quickly, Bill. That some of these are, I love the donut example, but some of these are really hard decisions, and we're actively engaged with a middle market manufacturer right now, and we're working on their packaging, right? All the things they have to put on it before it ships out. And they had a long-term supplier who really was part of this manufacturer for, I think it was over 3 decades, if you can imagine.
Wow.
And so, their pricing, they didn't grow along with the manufacturer. And so, they had a hard decision to make. It's not our decision to make. And they, at the end of the day, they have to stay competitive, right? So they wanted us to give the supplier every opportunity to perform. But at the end of the day, they said, look, you've got to be within acceptable benchmarks. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, there's tough choices to make, and especially when you didn't even know you had to make them, right?
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, because I don't care who you are and what position you hold in business, you can't know everything, right? You can't wear every hat. You can't understand every aspect of a business, and especially the non-sexy parts, right? We don't even want to try with that. But it's there's the old saying, right? Work on your weaknesses, and your strengths will be fine. And then there's other people say, you know what, just stick to your strengths, because your weaknesses are your weaknesses, and bring in other people who can do that for you. One of the hardest things for a business owner to understand is it's okay to ask for help. Absolutely.
Well, Bill, do you remember that? I know I don't know if it's an apocryphal story, and I'll always mess up the band, but it's a story of the band that they would always require that there is only green M&Ms in their dressing room, right? And they would check that all the time. And again, I don't remember the band. I don't want to screw it up. I thought it was Van Halen, but who knows?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, so they go and remember the story for that. They said, look, we're always looking for the green M&Ms, because we know if they got down to the last detail of green M&Ms, that everything else is going good. So think about what we're doing for them, saying, look, that CFO, if she's able to go into the C-suite and she's got her act together on all this unsexy, boring stuff, well, I'm really glad you got those copy agreements, right? And the whatever it is, the CEO, the owners will know, the board will know that she's got her act together because the green M&Ms are taken care of. So that's what we're trying to do, is get those green M&Ms in that jar.
The other important value about that with the green M&Ms, and this is a trick that I know some folks use in contracts, is because they know now that the person on the other end has read through the whole contract. Right. Instead of,
that's right.
Because if they don't catch it, then they didn't read it. Because that kind of a thing stands out, doesn't it? You can always go back and say, no, I was just kidding. I just wanted to know if you actually read through the contract.
Exactly right. Well, that's a good one. And I find myself guilty, when you look at a bunch of contracts all the time, especially you'll see those headers like, okay, I know what, this is all the, this is the IP stuff and all that other stuff. And at the end of the day, you're just like, oh man, they got me with the green M&Ms. I didn't even see it. Right. Got to pay attention.
You look at any 10-page contract and say there's probably 8.5 pages of unnecessary wording in it. Right. But I'm not jumping on lawyers, but we all like to prove to folks that we bring value, and that we're important here. But contracts, I'm working on developing one myself, and I've got a friend who uses one. It was 8 pages long, and she got it down to 1.5 pages. And she said, "You get rid of all this fluff, and but don't get rid of the green M&Ms." You still want to know if people are reading through it, but like if you're reading a lot of contracts and you pick it up and there's 100 pages to this contract, you're probably rolling your eyes already, going, "Oh, I got to go through all of this," because it's not fun, it's not sexy.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good thing for those business owners out there and the people on this podcast is that, hey, put in your own green M&Ms. Let's see who's paying attention. Those things that matter to you, how invested they really are in what how they're trying to help you.
Yeah, great point. Great point. It's so I love your approach. You're going in trying to make everybody look good and feel good, and maybe learn about how to even be better, and learn how to understand more about what your position holds. You go into the middle managers. I really love that, because middle managers probably typically believe that they're just a middle manager. That's it. They have a title to their name, because we know corporate world, they love titles, right?
Yeah.
I
do. I'm like the CEO, man. I'm like I love that title.
That's a great title. If things are going well. If things aren't going too well, that's a lonely place.
Yeah, I just work here at that point.
I'd give you a raise, but I'd rather give you just this title. But so what are some of the other aspects to what you gentlemen bring to the table? I mean, I talk about processes, procedures, costs. Do you get involved in the taxes at all or anything?
Yeah, we will do some of those things. It just depends, right? We're typically taxes is a specialty, but I think that really some of the key things is that think about it. We actually have, and how many people there's some taglines out there to somebody's brand that you're just like, okay, that sounds like you guys got together and we're able to whiteboard it, and that sounds like a good one. But really what we do is we bring value through our insights, okay? And we illuminate opportunities, which means we don't know going into a company how we're going to help them yet. In fact, that whole process is saying, look, at the end of the day, a lot of times John will be going in there and he's just saying, you know what, you guys are doing awesome right here. You need a little help over here, but maybe your team can do that. So what we do is we'll go in, sign an NDA. Hey, let's take a look. Let's give you some business intelligence before you even sign anything with us. So let's go look at that. And that's what I told you before. Here's the things you guys are doing good. Here's where you need some help, but you guys have the team to do it. And there's some opportunity there because we know. And then here's some things we might be able to partner up. So we go in just eyes wide open every time. And it's exciting for us to be able to say, okay, what can we do to help them? And then even before they sign, we project for them how much dollars we're going to generate for them. How crazy is that? That's like Babe Ruth pointing over the left field fence. I'm going to hit this ball with that lady in the orange hat. We're the only ones in the world can do that. That's hyperbole, but it's not. It's true. And that's because we've figured out this crazy stuff of we've got all this data, right? 20 years in the US, 30 years worldwide, that we're able to see trends and contracts and all these things. And so with that knowledge that we have, we could say, look, we know for that size, this industry, this location, this is probably where they should be. But we don't tell them exactly what percentages are, things like that. But we say, look, if you follow our program and we go after these things here together, we're going to generate for you this amount of dollars. What would you do with that money, right? And by the way, that's net of our fee. We generate our own fees, right? So we're not asking them to come out with a budget for paying us. We're going to have to pull our fees from what we generate for them, and that's our agreement. That's pretty sexy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a novel idea. We'll earn our own money here. You really aren't going to have to pay us anything. And that's a beautiful sales pitch. But I love it because, like you said, you look at somewhere there are 40 different things. You know where to look, right? Because you're doing due diligence. You're doing your homework. You talked about where you know the manufacturer, what they make, the area they're in, the market they reach out to. You do your homework going in, so you know specifically where to look.
Absolutely.
You know,
And we have, and here's our secret, Bill. This is our trade secret. Again, this is between us. Nobody else is on this call. Is that we have experts at every one of these unsexy categories, 2 and 3 and 4 businesses deep. So it's like John doesn't need to be an expert in all those weird categories, but we've got nerdy people who can actually communicate with you that go through, hey, let's talk about those linens in your hotel or your hospice center, right? Let's go through that. It's like, really? There's an expert on bed sheets? Yeah, there is. And people spend a lot of money on that.
Well, you know, that's where we go to YouTube, right? And Google, because we could look that up like I did yesterday. It's like, how do we get my shower glass doors clean as a whistle? You do your homework. But so many people don't do this. You know, they don't do due diligence. It's a pet peeve of mine. I have a hard time when people ask me questions. I'm like, you do know there's an amazing tool out there called Google that will give you the answer in less than 5 seconds. But let me help you out.
That's right.
So I might not be very good on your team because I might not walk in there and be as kind and gentle with the employees and the middle market managers.
Great value add, Bill. Great value add.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Bill, I was wondering if I could let me just tell you some of the exciting stuff that's happening that I think everybody needs to know when it comes to what's going on with supply chain. What can they do, right?
Yeah.
I think Google is an excellent one, but you know, AI, of course, is the buzzword. ChatGPT. Those things are, you know, they're kind of cool. They're also scares the crap out of me, right? And all of us on some of the stuff that it can do. But let's talk about it, how that relates to your supply chain or suppliers that you're using. So, Bill, right now, because of all of these car sites, right? I mean, there is no way you're going to get hosed on buying a new car right now, or even a used one. You got Carfax. You can see with my options, my zip code, here's what somebody paid for that car 2 weeks ago. All right. Yep. Totally changed the whole auto industry, right? Now that interest rates go up, now they have another way to make some money. But before, they're just like making transactions on getting you hooked up on the lender. But think about that. What that means is, Bill, you have got complete business intelligence for a new car. There is no doubt that you know everything you need to know to get the right price on the right terms. All right. Now imagine, this is where we're going, right? Imagine if we're able to do that with everything in our business purchasing side. I know what so-and-so paid here. I know what I should be getting there, right? You're able to go on ChatGPT, right? The Google, and you'll just say, hey, tell me how much it should cost me to ship this package at 5 pounds from here to there. That comes back and says, hey, Bill, what size company are you? What kind of volume do you have? Okay, you should be paying this. Here's the high, here's the low, and here's what you've got. Make no mistake, that's coming. And so we're on the forefront of that. We've taken this data and we're actually able and have our own internal AI. We actually use it, machine learning, on being able to take all that data we've been accumulating for years and years and years and be able to ask those questions. And that points us in the right direction. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool what we do and where we need to go.
That's fascinating. But you still got to do your due diligence. I can tell you, I just bought a car last weekend. And I didn't go through all those steps, but because I love playing with car salesmen, but that's a different game.
You're just mad. Those car salesmen today are not equipped to be able to do that anymore, Bill. So they're just they're not used to negotiate anymore because of that. So that's another story.
I'll tell you what,
I want to hear.
They're still out there taking advantage. It took my daughter, 26 years old, 2 months to get a car because she's a single woman walking into a dealership to buy a car. And let me tell you, that's just a bunch of wolves licking their chops right there.
That's true. That's true.
Be
armed and ready. Be armed and ready with Carfaxes and everything about those cars. I tell you, you're in the power position.
And now you can buy a car from Amazon. They're
amazing.
selling cars. But I love this AI things because yes, it is a buzzword. A lot of people are embracing it, and many are in fear of it. I'm personally, being a finance person, I have my reservations about how it might be able to interfere with the investment world and the economy. But you're showing me a way in which it can be helpful to the economy.
It's the power to use it to query data massive amounts, it may not be able to predict some of the things we think it can predict, but in our case, it can project based on inflation rates, things like that. Generally, what you should be doing in your business in many different categories, in your many different expenses that you've got.
Yeah, I mean, how many business owners don't even understand the effect of a 1% interest rate change, or dollar value change? You know, many people don't understand. Well, the GDP, it's growing at 4.9%. That's inflation. Yeah, but what does that mean?
That's right.
You know, well, if you're only earning 1% on your money, but you're losing 4.9% to the inflation, you know, or you're out 3.9%. How are you gonna make that up?
Think about how much everybody's learned over the last few years, right? Got hit with COVID, people are shutting down. But even more disruptive was the supply chain issues.
Yes.
And then inflation, right? How do you know? Well, think about it, Bill. If you know, now all of a sudden, well, here's what we saw, right? We saw suppliers for the first time in years start dropping their customers. You know, because they've got agreements that bound them to pricing, and they're like, I'm sorry, I can't work with you. I can't work with you because I can't hold that to you. And some of these smaller guys, some of the bigger ones, they're getting dropped, right? And so one other tidbit I'd give this audience here is like, look, if these are key suppliers for you, treat them as if they were your customers, because that business, let's say you don't have a lot of leverage at all. You know, a simple note to the CEO, even a large company, says, hey, you know what? Your rep here helped me out. You guys are awesome. And we're just a small company. Well, you're going to show up on the company newsletter the next month, this little company that you're in that has no leverage. What's the chance of that supplier dropping you right after that? Right? It's
Absolutely,
like develop. It's still people, right? So, you know, if they're critical to you and you don't have leverage, develop those relationships, treat that supplier like a customer, and you're gold.
You know, I love that. That's like, I like to tell people who work in a company, I said, don't look at yourself as a middle manager in this company. Look at yourself as you're a business owner, and you are there to provide the best possible experience for that company in there. And it's a different mindset, and you'd be surprised at how that helps you grow and become better at what you do. But yeah, I love that. I mean, supply chain is so important, and you know, the issues we've seen in the past with all the boats sitting off the shores of Florida and California and whatnot, and funny and shockingly that inflation is a result of that.
It's not
right,
crazy.
and that should have been anticipated. Should have been expected. Right? You can't get product in. You can't make sales. What product gets in costs. What did a shipping container cost? At one point, it was a couple $1,000. You know, $1,800.
Yeah, $2,800 to send from China to the U.S. Now it's $14,000, right? I mean,
and
that's
that's
crazy.
Yeah, and that's the low for the last 2 years, right? I mean, it was up there in 30,000.
I saw a commercial the other day, Bill. It was funny because I was looking at it. You know, the guy goes up to the counter and he's like, you know, they're saying it's $18, you know, for the salad. And he's like, I'm just paying for my salad. Right. And it was just, you seen that one? And it's like, that's what happened. So think about it for these business owners or people, you know, this folks on this podcast, think about it. Guys, a lot of you got hosed because the interest rates went up, the supply chain, you know, or you know, the inflation went up, the supply chain, you know, your suppliers just arbitrarily just jacked up their pricing. Right. Yeah. So how can you prevent that? Right. How can you keep that from happening? If you had to learn the hard way, what did you learn? Well, you may not know that in your agreements, you could tie it to a national index, whatever weird thing, even if it's linens. So your supplier can actually tie it to that index. So if it goes up and down, your pricing changes accordingly, manages your risk, but it also gives your supplier more freedom and giving you better rates because they're not trying to cover for a catastrophic event that could really mess with their costs or have to drop people. So once you tie it to a national, some sort of third-party national index, now they're protected. You get better prices, and you're still good to go. That's how you're going to manage your risk. There's things like that are just simple things that they can do in their regular business, and happy to help people with that.
But we have business owners that they just walk right in front of that truck and they don't even see it coming. Right.
I've been there, man. I didn't see it coming.
You want to talk about another commercial that I've seen recently that just, again, shakes my head is all of a sudden come out Afterpay. Now, Afterpay is an Australian company that it's a way of using credit, but it doesn't go to your credit report, whether you make the proper payments or not. And all you do is sign up and you get a free $600. And of course, this is right in front of Black Friday. And all of a sudden, hey, don't worry about that unbelievable credit card debt that we have going on right now at the highest interest rates ever right now. Don't worry about that. Well, we'll just give you $600. Just sign up with us. And that's a truck coming right at you if you're signing up for that, because you're just putting yourself in further debt, further problems, and greater hardships coming at you in that, a month or two down the road. But it's the same thing with business owners. If they grab at something because it's sexy and they like it, but they don't really know what the consequences are. You guys come in and kind of help them understand direction and understand that, don't see that truck over there. We're gonna divert him.
John, how many times have you had, you're going in and look, we're working about expense reduction, but how much, John, is your time spent on stuff that has nothing really to do with business and our revenue model, but has everything to do about the client themselves, right?
Yeah, I'd say a bunch. And doubling back to one of your points, Charlie, that I wanted to tease out a bit more is so often, Bill, cost reduction will be, kind of an initiative, and maybe it's the hiring of a new CFO or COO, and very high on the list is reduce costs, or it just margins are getting tight, right? And then it's like, oh, we got to reduce costs. So Charlie mentioning you can do things so that it becomes more of it's embedded in the organization. Costs are always optimized, and instead of being initiative based. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, Charlie, to your point, we go way beyond just cost reduction, and yeah, I mean, many of us are working on the network, so we're looking to help any way we can.
I had one guy. We had a situation, Bill, where during the supply chain crisis, right? There's a company down in San Diego, and Greg Brown, John knows him well. He's a great consultant for us out of San Diego. He had a company call him and said, "Hey, look, Greg, we're shut down. We can't get." They made banana bread, national provider of banana bread. I didn't know that was a national thing, but I love banana bread. Stays moist. But they lost all their tins, right? All the tins that they package and put these things in there, they outsourced it to China a long time ago, and they were able to get, at the the pricing they needed. Well, now all of a sudden they're out of business, right? If they don't have those tins. And I remember Greg just reaching out to the network saying, "Hey guys, I got a customer here, our client here that we've helped in the past. He wasn't even a current client, and they know that we could help them on stuff like this." So he just called around and was able to find 3 US suppliers for them to get stuff to them right away, who they were also looking for business, right? It didn't cost them anything. We didn't charge anything for that. But that's the kind of things that John gets to do on a daily basis is just really become a resource.
And I wouldn't even call it cost reduction. I would call it cost efficiency, or as you said, cost optimization. I love what you guys do. You bring so much more to the table than just a product or a service. You bring in knowledge, skills, understanding. You have a great attitude in the way in which you do it. I love that. We have 1 minute left here, I believe. And is there one thing you want to get out there? We've put out your website up there a number of times.
No worries.
We got about 5 minutes. But
I thought you said you gave me the 2.
I pieced out to the audience.
Gosh, I got another donut story in there somewhere, Bill. No, well, I would just like you. I warned John about this, right? When we have 2 people on. I like to talk, and I want to make sure John is actually, if you go to our network, John's like, when he speaks, people listen. So John, I would love you to just kind of share maybe some parting thoughts and things that maybe this audience can, take home and maybe do even today. What's some things that they can do right now to look at their business and things that they can do differently?
Yeah. So there are things they can do that, as a result of this call that, that could help them right away. and they're right there. So, I would say certainly go back. Any of the listeners that are managing budgets, take any of the price increases they've had over the last 6 months, and just a simple inquiry. Hey, our why did the cost go up? Why did we have, or maybe it's 3 increases that are mounted to 23%? Who knows what it is? We've seen it all over the map, and so often they'll say, "Oh my gosh, it shouldn't have been that much." And so that's a quick and easy thing they could do. And there's several more. Happy to talk to anybody about any of this. And we're really an open book. We are here to help at the end of the day. And I would add, Charlie and I know we're not a fit for everybody, but we are a fit for companies that really want to create a world-class supply chain. And if they're focused on that, we can typically help.
That's awesome, John. I'll leave it like this at the end. And by the way, I go to the website. That's great. We look really serious on there. And obviously we pay for those photos because none of us look like that. We're all gray hairs. And we're ex-executives and things like that. But here's something that you say like, yeah, I kind of like these guys. I should probably hear them out. Email, go to Jay Jordan, right? John Jordan. It's Jay Jordan at expensereduction.com. He will get you hooked up. It doesn't matter where you're at in the world. We could help you out. And what I'd recommend is simply this, right? Not to sound like there's no obligation, blah, blah, blah. No, we'll just say, look, we'll come in. You're going to upload your accounts payable, the transactional side, into a secure site. We will come back to you in a couple of weeks with a full review. We've signed an NDA. You don't even have an agreement with us. And we're going to, just like I kind of, shared with you, Bill, in the beginning, is here's some areas right now. You have some opportunity. Get after them. You guys can do that. Here's areas you don't want to touch. Here's some things we could partner on. And it's been so fun because at the end of the day, if we're able to shake hands, okay, you guys have now got benchmarking information that normally costs you 20, 30 grand to be able to have an expert look at that for you and benchmark that. You're getting it for free. Our hope, of course, is that, hey, these guys got some credibility and let's get them after this unsexy stuff over here in this other column they keep pointing to. And let's get those dollars so that we can spend it on real growth.
Yeah, I love that. Because there are consultants out there that'll come in and say, I guarantee you I can meet you in 45 minutes and I can save you 10, 20 grand. I'll show you how to do it. They're all over the place. But it's about like reducing taxes by writing off your parking lot, or the lawn care service or something like that.
Let me show you how to do it because my business failed and these are the areas that I missed.
That's how we get the gray hair, right? This is how we get gray hair is what we get when we didn't listen to that good advice. We got experience instead.
That's right.
Well, School of Hard Knocks always is the way to go.
Yeah. Once again, if you want to just have that conversation, reach out to Jay Jordan at expensereduction.com or visit expensereduction.com, us.expensereduction.com. And these guys can help you out going in. What a great time of year to do it too, as you're wrapping up probably a fiscal year for a lot of people, and looking at 2024. It could be a great time to touch base with them.
And they're told, hey, the boss comes in and says, hey guys, we need another 2%, another 3%. We're in your back pocket. Let's go get it for you.
That's it. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, for all of us here at Innovative Strategies and 2169, guys, we can't thank you enough. We know you're busy, cutting out a little bit of time for us today. And as always, until we meet again, be good, but more importantly, be good to one another.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on. Charlie, John, forward to talking again real soon. Thanks for everybody listening in.
All right.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Awesome. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.